Disclaimer. These findings are the result of my opinions, and though I will go into detail about how I came to these opinions, they are still just that, opinions. So, if you disagree with anything in the video, make sure to leave a comment in the section below and let me know. Hello and welcome to this episode of the inaugural Derailed Reviews Music Edition. My name's Aaron Schmidt, and you're about to see what it looks like when one man tries to find the best song by three men, three instruments, 20 separate physical music releases consisting of 3 studio albums, 1 B-side, 2 best-ofs, 1 EP, 7 re-release special editions, and 6 live albums. 1,930 minutes of music over a 30-year legacy, rivaled only by the greatest musicians to ever come together and create art with their extremities. Today I bring you the scientifically best Nirvana song. When I first imagined taking on this task, I wanted the process and therefore the results to be as objective as possible. After all, who really am I to decide, and who would care what I think the best Nirvana song is? So I thought to myself, what if I created a rubric of sorts that would help me decipher the essence of what made up all Nirvana songs? So I did exactly that. I ended up breaking down Nirvana songs into 8 categories. But before I go into how the rubric exactly works, let's dive into what I think makes the perfect Nirvana song. I started by researching what Nirvana thought the best Nirvana song was, because after all, they are the end-all be-all to answer this question. But, as you might already know, they never really explicitly state what their best song is or what their favorite song is. The best I could find was an interview with Rolling Stone that Kurt Cobain gave, where he says, quote, "Everyone is focused on that song so much. The reason it gets a big reaction is people have seen it on MTV a million times. It's been pounded into their brains, but I think there are so many other songs that I've written that are as good, if not better than that song, like Drain You. That's definitely as good as Teen Spirit. I love the lyrics, and I never get tired of playing it. Maybe if it was as big as Teen Spirit, I wouldn't like it as much." Now, this doesn't mean, by any stretch of the imagination, that Kurt's favorite song is Drain You, but it does give us a hint. Based on this logic, the more popular the song is, the less cool it is. So if Teen Spirit is the most popular, which it is with over 908 million plays on Spotify, then something like Downer from the debut album, Bleach, would near the bottom with only 11 million plays. But does that make it a better song? No. So there's more to dig into here. So Kurt thinks the audiences should enjoy the song Drain You just as much, if not more, than Teen Spirit. So what are the elements of both? Let's take a listen. So right off the bat, we have 2 different approaches to a similar constructed song. One, Teen Spirit has a more classic intro, no vocals and a soft verse, returning to the intro riff as the chorus, where with Drain You, we jump out the gate with vocals and are swept away immediately. The thing that these 2 songs share, and one that a lot of Nirvana songs share, is a simple 4-chord structure with the iconic notes that start out Teen Spirit, F, A sharp, G sharp, C sharp, and Drain You, A, C sharp, F sharp, B, carry each song. It's a simplicity that I don't mean as a negative, but actually as a unique talent that Kurt had for writing these riffs that would be almost lullaby in nature. It's fascinating how often this tool is implemented in Nirvana songs, and how you would assume it would get older way faster than it actually does. So here comes the first of the 8 categories. How simple is the song? Which correlates to how easy the song will get stuck into your head. But pop songs do this all the time. It's even a pretty well-known tool for people outside of music even, thanks to things like the brilliant comedy routine by Axis of Awesome with their song, the 4-chord song. So this can't be the full story, but a 4-chord progression that is simplistic is definitely a defining aspect of a Nirvana song. So what else? Well, let's go back to Teen Spirit and Drain You. Now, after we hear the first verse, chorus, and going into the second verse, we should notice a pattern. It's used so frequently in our day and age that it's hard for me to even put this as a category, but I'll explain. So the pattern is what's called verse, chorus, verse. And what you might be thinking is, well, yeah, that's how songs are written. Well, that's how they're written now. With the rise in popularity in rock and roll music in the late 40s, early 50s, that's where verse, chorus, verse structure really blew up. But before that, we would get what's called a 32-bar form. And this is most easily identified in the song Over the Rainbow from The Wizard of Oz. Listening to this, you can hear that the song doesn't simply follow a verse-chorus-verse structure. The verse-chorus-verse formula is so widely used by Cobain that Nirvana actually has a song called verse-chorus-verse. Next, we're going to look at another common aspect, But this one has its origins, at least for Kurt Cobain, in a band called Pixies. Cobain, being such a big Pixies fan, even named his daughter Frances after the frontman of Pixies, Black Francis. After listening to some Pixies, you'll notice another pattern. One called Loud, Quiet, Loud. Take their #1 song on Spotify, for instance, Where Is My Mind? A quiet acoustic strums for a few measures until the electric guitar comes in with a shriek, only for the song to quiet down again for the chorus. Taking this new formula and applying it to Teen Spirit, we can hear the Pixies' inspiration in the quiet verses and the pounding chorus. Thus, we have our third category. So verse, chorus, verse, and loud, quiet, loud, as well as this next category, in the rubric are simple yes and no answers. Does the song have or exclude this aspect? And one aspect that I think is super important to the best Nirvana song is a repeating lyric. Now, I don't mean that he says the same line in a chorus in 2 parts of the song. I mean that Kurt repeats it and usually screams the line over and over again. So let's look at Teen Spirit again. The end. A denial is chanted over and over again 9 times. On the same album, we have track 10, Stay Away, where he repeats the line Stay Away 5 times. Honestly, you can pick any song out of the Nirvana catalog, and you have a probably 75% chance to find a song with a repeating lyric like that. Now, so far we've talked exclusively about Kurt and his writing process and referencing what he adds to the best Nirvana song. But when we started the video, I told you there was 3 members to Nirvana. Now, to be fair, Chris and Dave believe Nirvana to be Kurt's band, and that they're merely tools for Kurt to get his music out there. But after reading every interview that I could possibly get my hands on, I was able to suss out that Dave and Chris did have writing privileges, so far as that they were able to determine how long a song could be, or how long a section should repeat, that kind of thing. So let's look at Chris Novoselic a little bit here. Chris is an odd guy for many reasons, but my personal favorite is his affinity for not wearing shoes or socks during live performances. And watching this wacky, towering man jump up and down barefoot always brings a smile to my face when I watch live Nirvana videos. Given that Chris has limited to no writing ability in the band, Chris's bass lines, especially in the early Nirvana, are very simple and really just follow the same chords that Kurt plays. There is very little deviation and memorable bass lines on Bleach. Take that and listen to Lounge Act from 1991's Nevermind, or Milk It from 1993's In Utero, and it's like a different guy's playing bass. He single-handedly carries the song with those bass lines, and thus we must have a beefy, crisp bass line in the best Nirvana song. Dave Grohl of Foo Fighters superstardom also, as we mentioned, had sparse input creativity, but in performance, he does one thing that drummers still try to replicate today, and that is beat the ever-living hell out of his drum set. I would argue that it's hard to hear if you're not listening for it, but when you do, you'll hear just how hard Dave hits those heads, and it makes the songs elevated. Just go back and listen to In Bloom or Tourette's, and you'll notice how your head is bobbing to the absolute beating of those drums. It's incredible, and therefore, a very important category has to be pounding drums. These last 2 categories are probably the most subjective and difficult to explain, and even when explaining them to fellow Derailed member and huge Nirvana fan Derek, it got a little muddy, and his ratings for particular songs were different than mine, so here's where the science gets a little wonky. The 7th category came from familiarity with analyzing music in the past, and it turns out it's quite common. It comes from this trait that musicians do with lyrics where they purposely make nonsense lyrics to sort of poke fun at the fans that like to dissect every little lyric, even when the artist had no intention for there to be meaning there in the first place. And this happens a lot. In fact, I personally believe that this is the best part of art. The possibility that I could create something with a specific emotion in mind, and that can evoke a different emotion in you, or maybe the origin of that emotion is different, is fascinating to me. So though I don't agree with Kurt, or another famous artist who did this was John Lennon, in an attempt to hinder the fans from deciphering meaning from I Am the Walrus, it's purposefully nonsense. Kurt, being a huge Beatles fan himself, probably took inspiration from John on this, and also notes that almost all songs from their debut album Bleach have no lyrical meaning at all, and are actually written in the last minute out of frustration of the recording process. Now, of course, we do have Nirvana songs with literal meanings or backgrounds, like Polly, for instance. There are also songs like Drain You, which have a 50-50 cohesiveness to the lyrics, where only every other line seems to make sense. I truly believe that this is the perfect balance for lyrical cohesiveness, the 7th category, because Kurt did have things to say, but also following in his anti-establishmentism and probably inspiration again from John Lennon, had the inclination to throw off people with nonsense lyrics. So you're left wondering as a listener, is there meaning here? I believe the answer to that question should be a kind of, or something of that sort. Now, the eighth and final category is outsider music influence. What does that mean? It came to me when going through photos and interviews and doing research for this video. A photograph of Kurt with a t-shirt with an alien-looking creature on it, and the words, "Hi, how are you?" and the name, Daniel Johnston. I looked into who Daniel Johnston was and found an area of music that actually blew me away. And in more ways than one, reinvigorated my love of music and art. See, Daniel Johnston was one of the first popular artists in this neo-genre outsider music, which is defined on Wikipedia as being created by self-taught or naive musicians outside of the music industry. So I, as I hope you will, went down a little bit of an outsider music YouTube rabbit hole, and along the way found a really hidden key to the Kurt Cobain writing brain. The likes of Bingo Gazingo and Shooby Williams took me one step closer to understanding one of the greatest musicians of our generation, and I gotta say, it was probably one of the most rewarding parts of this whole process. It's unlistenable to some, but what I took from my listening to this genre was one really important aspect that I think applies to Kurt's writing style, and that is pure expression. Kind of like therapy, where you scream at the top of your lungs just to feel something or get something out. It's like doing that with an instrument playing behind it. One artist that is also a highlight for me in this outsider music rabbit hole is a band called The Shags and their album The Philosophy of the World. It's fascinating because the band, consisting of all sisters, was formed at the insistence of their father, who during a palm reading by his mother at a young age was told that he would have daughters and they would be famous for music. So when his children got to a certain age, he got them instruments, took them to a studio, and had them record this album, Philosophy of the World. The album is very hard to listen to because of the lack of the ability to play the instruments by the sisters, and especially the drumming, which seems to be almost purposefully off time. It's odd, it's interesting, and again, I strongly recommend you take a listen for yourself. And it all came full circle for me when I saw on the Wikipedia page for the Shags that Kurt had placed this album at his number 5 of all time. It's right here that I figured out I needed to put a category in that represents this aspect of Kurt's writing, and that would be called outsider music influence. This is also, as I said, one of the most subjective of the categories, as I'm deciding how much it appears that outsider music has influenced a track, which we can never know for sure, but I really took to heart this concept of pure expression when thinking about how Kurt utilized this influence in Nirvana. With this, it's easier to see the gamut that Nirvana songs run with this influence, with songs like Tourette's being on one end and Polly being on the other. So we're partway there in getting to understand what exactly is the best Nirvana song based on science alone. What we have so far are 8 categories: simplicity, verse, chorus, verse, loud, quiet, loud, repeating lyrics, bass line, pounding drums, lyrical cohesiveness, and outsider music influence. We also know that the more popular a song is, the less likely it is to be the best song, which leaves us with our final task, to grade all Nirvana songs on this 80-point scale, some categories on a 0 to 10 scale, some on a 0 or 10 scale, such as verse, chorus, verse, as they are just yes or no. Then make note of all the songs' popularity by listens on Spotify, narrow it down to the top 20 or so, and finally find out once and for all what the best Nirvana song is. Luckily, I've done that all already. I've narrowed down the search to 21 songs and organized them by album. They are Downer, Sappy, Spank Through, In Bloom, Breed, Lithium, Drain You, Lounge Act, Stay Away, Even in His Youth, Dive, Sliver or Silver, Been a Son, Aneurysm, Raped Me, Frances Farmer Will Have Her Revenge on Seattle, Milk It, Radio Friendly Unit Shifter, I Hate Myself and I Want to Die, You Know You're Right, and Verse, Chorus, Verse. I'd like to also note that the only song I removed without grading was Smells Like Teen Spirit, based on the rule that it's just too damn popular. And even Kurt has said he has written better songs. So no matter its score on the rubric, it can't win. I also want to add that I thought it would be neat to find the ideal song length of Nirvana songs. So based on these top 21 songs, the average length of them is 3 minutes and 22 seconds. So is the best Nirvana song close to this length? Should it be? Let me know in the comments below if you think so. And if you think I missed a song that you'd like to see graded on this rubric, or if you think the rubric is just nonsense to begin with and I shouldn't have made this video in the first place, let me know. Now, after approximately 1,000 hours of listening to Nirvana songs, which consisted of listening to songs multiple times, some songs once, disregarding the special edition tracks that were the exact same songs, listening to songs again to learn how to play them on guitar and bass to judge simplicity, and finally listening to each instrument individually. I also spent another 22 hours reading and deciphering lyrics from Nirvana, Pixies, Daniel Johnston, and the Beatles. After all this, I went through the top 21, and based on the rubric, found a top 3, and they are: Stay Away, the 10th track from 1991's Nevermind, and personally I was incredibly happy to see this on the list. Though I did make the list, some of my favorite songs didn't make it based on the rubric. I was devastated to see Lounge Act not make it into the top tracks, but Stay Away just has a little bit of everything. It's incredibly simple to play, which adds a lot to the lullaby aesthetic. Interestingly, it does have the verse-chorus-verse, but does not follow a loud, quiet, loud format. It's probably my favorite of the repeating lyrics of the top 3, where towards the end you get the Stay Away with one final swap to God is Dead. It's 100% Nirvana fuck you attitude, and I love it. The bass line and drums absolutely own, and even though the bass line does follow the guitar for the most part, it's just a great lick, and it's such a powerful opener for the song. From the last chorus on is really where this song shines, in my opinion. The influence of expression, no matter what, bleeds out, and you can really imagine the band destroying the stage and their instruments during this section. Finally, the lines like, "Rather be dead than cool," before every line ends in rhyme. It's a cryptic song lyrically that, though not every other line makes sense, embodies that essence of, should I read into this line? Give an inch, take a smile. Or does it just rhyme with the more obvious line, fashion shits, fashion style? As well as blow it out, keep it in. Does this mean smoke? Have to have poison skin, which is saying he doesn't trust many people, and if people get close, he wants to poison them so they don't bother him. It's also really interesting to see the lyrics to these songs pulled up on Genius, where you can kind of visually see which lyrics are made sense of versus the ones that are not. Again, if you agree or disagree with this process, let me know in the comments below. Next up on the finals list, we have In Utero's Milk It, a song that I specifically remember hearing for the first time in 10th grade and thinking, what the hell was that? First of all, the name is weird. The construction of the song seems odd, even though it does follow almost all common Nirvana traits. For simplicity though, this does just have power chords, but they are quite fast and interchanging, so the song does have that peanut butter on the brain quality, but it's not nearly as simple as, say, Sappy. Verse, chorus, verse, of course. Loud, quiet, loud, 100%. However, it is missing the crucial repeating lyric, which I was very surprised by, as it seems like a song ripe for a classic Cobain screeching of the same 2 words over and over, but nevertheless, doesn't have this. The bass line is amazing by Chris, whereas it carries the song through its awkward random guitar track. The drums pound out hard, and as I just mentioned, that awkward random guitar track, which really is the essence of the track, has such a strong inspiration from outsider music. Now, if we look at Genius, we can see it's not quite a 10, as more than half of the lyrics can be made sense of, but not much. I especially love the chorus, doll, steak, test, meat. Those familiar with Cobain know his strange obsession with dolls and making strange doll art, so him pairing the word doll with steak and then test and meat, it's just the quintessential Nirvana lyric. So what is the scientifically best Nirvana song determined specifically by me and my not nearly bulletproof rubric? Without any further ado, I present to you Radio-Friendly Unit Shifter, a moderately simple song that even the most recent of guitarists can follow along with. A track oozing with that classic verse, chorus, verse, and loud, quiet, loud format. And yes, I do recognize that the feedback during the verse brings question to the loud, quiet, loud format. When you listen to it, which I did a lot, it really does contrast as quiet compared to the chorus, and it's more ambient feedback than a loud verse in my opinion. The bass line does purely follow the guitar, so it's not stellar in the bass to category, but does carry the song through the existential guitar of the intro and verses, but the drums come to play. There's no doubt about that. You can really hear the pure expression aspect of outsider music that I've been speaking about as well, super easily. The song is part noise, part lullaby. I'd say the lyrics are about as understandable as Stay Away. It's not Drain You, it's not perfect, but it does have those interesting lyrics and those blatant lyrics. But what kept it here lyrically is even when the lyrics are understood, they're tragic. Use just once and destroy is the label on the outside of a syringe that Cobain probably saw 1,000 times shooting up heroin. It's fascinating to me, if not a little disappointing, that it's the length of 4 minutes and 52 seconds is one of the longest songs Nirvana has in general, and the longest of the 21 finals, which is nowhere near what I stated was the ideal Nirvana song length of 3 minutes and 22 seconds. So there you have it. Lady Science has swooped down and graced us with a result that will hopefully shock you if you're a Nirvana fan, or at least spark something in you to go search for your favorite Nirvana song or what you think is the best Nirvana song. After all, that's what music is all about in general. So go out and create. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you want to see more things like this, if you want to see different bands, and if you want to see how the rubric was made and all the boring stuff, it's going to be up at patreon.com/derailed. Consider subscribing if you haven't, and if you just want to see more or the other Derailed guys mess around, we do stream on Twitch 5 days a week at twitch.tv/derailedgames. We play all sorts of game and even record our weekly gaming podcast, the Derailed Cast Live. Hope to see you there.